Hi, folks, and welcome to My Mayor, episode 11. For over 20 weeks now, we've been enjoying getting to know the candidates through the My Mayor series, and I hope you've gotten value out of it and had as much fun as I have. This will be the last episode before the primary, but we certainly look forward to having more conversations with the remaining candidates after the primary. I've been thinking about having a guest host for a while. I've got to do it quite a bit, and we thought it'd be fun to give somebody else a chance. And who better to do that than someone who's held the job themselves? And so we were able to get a little time on the books with former Mayor Rick Baker. And so he'll be guest hosting some of the episodes today. And I look forward to those conversations. I know that they'll be, as everything that Mayor Baker does, thoughtful and fun. And I hope you enjoy them. And we'll see you again after the primary.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to My Mayor. This is Rick Baker. I had the honor to be mayor of St. Petersburg from 2001 to 2010. And today I've been asked to interview the various candidates for mayor of St. Petersburg that we got a great race going on right now. And now I've got with me Michael Ingram. I'd like to welcome Michael. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for guest hosting it. It's nice to see some of the past mayors coming in and really getting back into it to help out people.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to be back. I've got a chance to get to know all the candidates a little better myself. So I've enjoyed that quite a bit. So tell me how, you've been in the race for a little while. We've got the election day coming up. People are out already voting today. The absentee ballots are out. How you feel so far? How generally is the campaign gone for you? Have you enjoyed it? And how's it going?
It's definitely been great. It's really a learning experience for anyone, but especially me. I'm still a political science student, so I've really learned more in the past few months than I've learned throughout my entire time at college. And a lot of people see that in their various degree programs and their various career paths. But it's definitely been a learning experience, and I'm definitely excited to see how things end up one way or another. And really, for me, the thing I want to see is young people turn out more in this election than the last. That is a winning result for me, no matter what happens.
I think that's a great objective. I got a lot of college degrees. I kept going till they finally kicked me out, made me go get a job, but I always say I got a PhD in cities. 10 years as mayor. It was, or not 9 years as mayor and a year campaigning. So there's nothing like on the job training, and you're getting it right now, going through the campaign and talking to folks. So I congratulate you for jumping into it. It's a big step to take, but I'm sure it's going to turn out you'll be happy that you did in the long term.
Yeah, even in the short term, I'm happy. However, it ends up.
Perfect. So what we're doing today, as we approach these, election day, is we're talking to all the candidates and we're giving them the option. It's really your show today. We're going to talk about three things, and you get to talk about what you want to talk about. So what I'm going to ask you is what are three things that you would like for the voters to know about you, about your campaign, about your platform, about what you're believing, about what you want to see done in St. Petersburg? What are those three things that you want them to know as they're getting about to make the decision on how to vote? And I'm going to ask you to do one of them at a time, and we'll talk about each. But if you could start with your first one.
Right. Well, so the first thing that I really think voters should keep in mind going into this election is that you're the people. You're the people that we're trying to represent. We have tons of opportunities to come out and talk. Like now, we have plenty of opportunity to come out and speak. But when you vote, that is really your chance to speak for what future you want. Don't let anyone preach and tell you that this is the future that you need. Don't pay attention to any of these other futures, because as connected as we all try to be, we can't represent every single person. And so by all these forums and all these interviews and debates, we're trying to say what we believe, but really what we're there to do is to represent the people. So make sure that you're voting from your heart, not voting on what you've been sold on by someone else, because what it comes down to is whether or not you'll love the future that's created because of what you voted for.
So let me follow up on that one before we go to the second one. So people should be voting on what they want their future to be. So what kind of future for them and for this city would you offer as mayor of the city? What would you see that future being in St. Petersburg?
Well, being a really young person, that future for me is a very long future. And what I'm really looking to do is a lot of candidates are talking about how they want a better world for their kids. But really, this is honestly something that I can selfishly say. I want a better world for myself. I want a better St. Pete for myself. I want to be able to look at St. Pete 50 years from now and be proud of what I did and have people come and thank me for what I did. But also, I would be creating a sense of accountability because I'm going to be here to be held accountable. It's not going to be like past issues that we've seen be punted on to the next mayor, resulting in something big like the St. Pete sewage spills, where being young, I'm going to be around to be held responsible, and I'm going to be able to be held accountable a lot longer than any of the other candidates that we're seeing.
So I will make a comment and then I'll ask the next question on the St. Pete sewage spills. The St. Pete sewage spills were largely the result of the closure of Albert Wooded Plant, which was one of our four sewer plants in the city that the current administration decided to close, and we lost about 20% of our capacity, which caused us, when we got a rainfall, not to be able to treat all the sewage, which then wound up in the environment. And so that really at the core of it is what happened. And I'm afraid we've been reeling and spending money ever since then. So that's my editorial comment on that. What would be your second point you'd like to make to the citizens as to why they think you should be their mayor?
Well, going more specifically about me and not just what voters should be keeping in mind for themselves, is that one of the things I really want to be doing is affordable housing, which is an issue that is going to be a core to my administration because we're seeing families being forced out, individuals being forced out of St. Pete solely by prices. And so, being mayor, your first responsibility is to the people. And if you can't even keep people in St. Pete, let them afford to live here, you're failing as a mayor. Not only are these skyrocketing rent prices forcing people out, they're also resulting in things like we're seeing now with our gun epidemic skyrocketing this year because people can't afford rent. And if they can't afford rent, then they're going to be turning to different ways of getting money to cover that rent, or they're just going to be stressed through the roof, worrying about how am I going to make it to that next paycheck? How am I going to keep a roof over my head and over the head of my family? So we're seeing an issue that really needs to be addressed. And again, this is something that, unlike a lot of candidates, I don't have a portfolio of housing that I just own a ton of properties that I can be evicting people and doing whatever I want with these properties, not really having to worry about it. I am just a regular person. I have to be worrying about these increasing rent prices because I can be priced out just like all these other families around St. Pete. So this is really a core issue to me personally and will be a core issue to my administration to make sure that we're keeping the people of St. Pete in St. Pete because they're the ones that make our city what it is.
So, what specifically would you do to increase the amount of affordable housing in the city?
One of the things that I would do is make sure that developers are being involved in creating this affordable housing, not just forcing people and forcing developers to create affordable housing, but really giving them a choice. Either they can set aside a reasonable amount of affordable housing, or they can pay a slightly increased tax on their property in order to cover affordable housing. And that increased tax money will go to building affordable housing somewhere in the neighborhood of that property that decided not to pay for it. That way, we're creating an affordable city. We're not creating a city with affordable areas. I don't want to see a St. Pete where when someone says, I'm coming here on a budget, I can only afford $1,000, $2,000 on rent, or even if we're looking at minimum wage, a quarter of a minimum wage salary, and that's the recommended amount you're supposed to be paying for your housing. That's just over $300. I don't want people to be telling them, go live at the affordable housing area, go live in the affordable section of St. Pete. I want St. Pete to be an affordable city everywhere. And that's also how we're going to combat gentrification of our various neighborhoods.
Okay, what would be your third item that you would tell folks that are watching? They have their ballot on their lap right now, and you want them to vote for you. What would be the third thing you would be telling them, say, to vote for Michael?
My third thing is think of the environment because St. Pete, especially being a coastal city, we're seeing all parts of the US being affected by climate change, by sea level rise. Like we're seeing the West on fire. But St. Pete, if we're going to exist in the future, we need to be preparing for this climate change, for this sea level rise. Look at hurricane season the past few years. We've seen some very strong hurricanes and many of them coming through. Just last year, we were going deep into the Greek alphabet. And if it continues at this rate, and that's what is expected, if not worse, St. Pete might not exist in just a short time. There are areas of St. Pete that are already flood zones. We get hit by a hurricane real hard, like we're scheduled for a 100-year storm. If we get hit like that, we need to make sure that St. Pete has the resiliency, that we've created the natural shorelines, not just the man-made defenses that can be damaged and weakened, but the natural resiliency to prepare for these storms, to prepare for sea level rise, because it's coming and we need to be prepared for it. Otherwise, there will be parts of St. Pete, like my childhood home, that will be underwater by the time I turn 50 or 60.
And what would that resiliency program look like?
So that resiliency for St. Pete would look like a natural shoreline that we need to really invest in, because an investment in a natural shoreline will result in not just an improvement to our natural environment. Like a natural shoreline could involve seagrass beds, which will result in manatees not starving anymore, like we're seeing in Tampa Bay. It also will create resiliency against things like red tide. And also, we're not going to need to continuously invest as cases like seawalls, which will need repair after every storm, and will need just continuous maintenance. We won't be seeing that same level of maintenance required. And also, if we use seawalls and a seawall is breached, that entire area it's protecting is now not just at risk, it is flooded. Natural shorelines are more staged, and they'll flood less for each breach that happens. And so, not just this, but we also need to be making sure that we're looking at equitable investments in our environmental resiliency. Areas like shore acres, areas like Snell Isle, they're very much at risk. We're seeing them flood during the day. We're also seeing areas like South St. Pete. Some of the candidates have been saying, South St. Pete doesn't flood. That's not true. We've seen South St. Pete flooding. And regardless, hurricanes aren't just deadly because of the flooding. And because we're seeing things like power outages that are lasting days, even up to weeks in certain areas, we need to be making sure that we're looking at all areas of St. Pete and preparing for the impacts of this climate change.
Well, Michael Ingram, candidate for mayor of St. Petersburg, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for kind of jumping into the ring. And it takes a lot of courage to do that, a lot of time and effort, and I'm sure you will continue to learn a lot. So I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you for taking your time. Vote Michael Ingram.
This is Rick Baker, and thank you for joining My Mayor today. I hope you have a great day.